Massive warm welcome back to the CIO Water Cooler, Alex. For anyone that may have missed our previous conversation, can you just tell everyone watching a little about who you are and what you do?
I head up sales and customer advocacy across Gamma's enterprise markets business unit, and that includes medium and large private and public sector organisations. In simple terms, we deliver communication and collaboration services to UK and multinational customers. But primarily, we're really helping customers solve business problems such as high operating costs and customer churn, whilst also obviously dealing with that important problem of actually driving top line growth as well.
Well, thanks again for joining me today. One of the things I was excited to talk about and maybe highlight in our conversation today is just as many businesses thought they might have mastered hybrid working, many found themselves completely blindsided by generative AI this year. And as a result, many business leaders are now struggling to keep up with the pace of technological change and, of course, those evolving needs of their customers. And equally, if we look in our personal lives, the last best experience we have anywhere has now become the minimum expectation for the experience we want anywhere, which ultimately means bad customer experiences lead to customer churn. So I'm curious, from your conversations that you're having with your clients, can you set the scene and tell me a little bit more about the kind of problems that you're seeing businesses struggling with at the moment?
So I think I've already mentioned the big two that we see quite commonly with our customers, that being customer churn and high operating costs. But as we found at our recent customer event, GX, AI is just huge. But for many, it's not a new thing. The latest flavour we see here is Gen AI, and that's really hit the news of late. When we think about Gen AI, there's some really great platforms out there that customers are beginning to leverage here now, things like Stable Diffusion and DALL-E 2, etc. But of course, the bot of the moment, ChatGPT, is what's really caught the imagination when it launched in November last year. But even though it wasn't the first platform in this particular area, what it was actually the first platform to really capture the world's imagination. And that's a world in touching distance beyond humans. But if we bring it back from AI and we bring it back to customer contact and really how we can deliver epic CX and avoid churn, which is a real business problem for many, we need to look at the detail of those problems. But not just the detail of those problems, we need to look at the root causes and then the desired outcomes. And here we see a focus on a real need to accelerate customer self-serve. We're seeing lots of customers focused on much better resolution during that initial contact. And of course, to do that well, a lot of customers are really spending a lot of time focusing on that story so far methodology to make sure that we're putting the right tools and the right context in front of the people that are not just on the front line, but also how they're pivoting to other elements of the business to really deliver that great and epic CX. And of course, if we mix that with what you were saying there, is how do you keep up with more demanding customers, with more demanding and changing needs, as you mentioned earlier? It's an absolute real challenge that a lot of customers are struggling with, and there's a lot of customers that are doing a fantastic job as well.
And I love that phrase you used there, epic CX, because I think the big question for many business leaders watching this will be, they'll be nodding in agreement during our conversation and they'll be thinking, this is great, but how can I get to that destination of epic CX? So for anyone watching, thinking that today, who maybe they've identified the problems that we've talked about, how can they get from where they are now to transitioning to where they need to be to unlock that ideal destination?
I can't possibly do that justice in a few minutes, but I'll give a good summary as certainly as I see it. Certainly for anybody that wants the full answer, I would suggest that they join us at the next CIO Water Cooler event, where we will actually be unpacking a lot more detail around this and giving people a lot of insight and a lot of wisdom as to how they can make that transition from A to B, because it's really, really super important that. The other interesting point just on that, before I give you the answer, is when we're actually at that event, we're going to actually be unpacking a lot of insights from a primary piece of research that we're doing exactly in this area. But to give you the very simple answer as to how do you actually get from A to B, and this is quite similar, not just in customer contact solutions, but in a lot of the communication and collaboration services that we deliver, it's very, very simple in many respects, that you just need to actually have a strategy that's based around what I would call a North Star approach, and an approach I like to call transition to transform. So most customers have already got technology in place. They've already got services in place. They've already got people in place, processes in place. But the challenges that they have with that is that they need to integrate all of that together. And that can often be the hardest part of any transformation in terms of how do you actually move from A to B. So if we consider that in the context of a CX environment, a customer contact environment, we need to be mindful of all these things that the customer's got. And we need to be able to race to what I call a parity position as soon as possible. Because the customer can't just turn off their CX solutions that they have in place. They can't just suddenly take time out on delivering that customer contact today whilst they actually move from A to B to get to that new position. And that's where the hard and difficult work really needs to come into play. What a lot of our customers are really asking for and what they're really needing is they're needing to be able to race to that parity position as soon as possible, but also to be able to deal with what effectively is going to be two solutions in play at one particular time. So you may have different customers being served in different ways on different solutions at that particular point. You may have certain channels being serviced on the old platform, whilst you obviously move to the new channels and the new setup on the new platform. And there's a lot in there, and it's about how you actually unpick that and how you mitigate that, how you de-risk it. And quite frankly, I think really the summary bit here that we look to solve for is really solving for confidence. Because once you transition, once you've had that race to parity, that's when you get to the good stuff. That's when you can really transform your business to be the best in theatre, the best in sector, to really start accelerating beyond your competitors, obviously avoiding that churn and driving that business growth, which is essentially what all businesses are needing to do in this particular area. And that's effectively what getting to an epic CX position gives you.
Your gold as always, Alex, and so much food for thought there. So thank you for joining me today. And for everyone watching, remember, you can carry on this conversation with Alex, who's going to dive much more deeply into everything we discussed today and so much more at the CIO Water Cooler live event on the 22nd of November at the Manchester Hall in Manchester. Registration details will be available in the link below, so please check that out, and hopefully we'll see you all there.